So looking at you, that obviously a variety of skills are needed, but how can the flexible workspace operators attract the best talent for this way of working? Chris, do you want to start on that one this time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think first of all, I'd say in terms of talent, I think organizations need to look at what they have internally already. So you need some sort of internal mobility program so you can identify that, people that have perhaps certain talents that you didn't really realize maybe want to go and trial a job so it's a temporary move or even can be a permanent move. So there are lots of platforms that you can use now. I think one of them is called Hitch, which is really good at identifying the existing talent that you have in your business. If you're looking to attract new talent, then actually as an organization, you've got to really build this, this employer of choice brand. So you've got to be seen as a business with a real purpose. And that's so important now, because I know that obviously the redundancy, numbers are pretty high, and it's very grim out there, but it won't last forever. And people will want to join organizations that provide a fantastic experience.
Okay, thank you. Jamie?
Again, Chris kind of hit the nail on the head there. In my opinion, in the way to best attract talent out there, for me, it's about what more an organization can bring to that candidate, or what they can offer for that candidate. Because obviously at the moment, the basic skills, as Maslow's theory, the hierarchy of needs suggests, if you covered your basic skills, then that's brilliant. But I think to attract the best talent, you need to offer as an organization that a little bit more. And what I mean by that is development opportunities. Is there an opportunity for them to progress? A lot of those individuals that are looking for a career within any industry really are looking for that next step. How can I do that a little bit better? Collaborative working approaches as well, I think is a really good thing to advertise and actually say, look, we work really well together. There's collaborative working approaches there. You have the ability to, have the autonomy to create this role your own, is also something that I believe attracts the best candidate. But also for an organisation that demonstrates that they actually take on board the current issues that are happening really seriously. So, for example, as we know over the last year, the major topics or the major themes that has come through during 2020 was the diversity, inclusion, and the mental health. So if organisations are demonstrating that they are actually taking those issues seriously and putting initiatives in place, combat, and once you've done your analysis to see, are we actually a diverse workforce? What are we doing around mental health? I think it will be a great, PR, and obviously live and breathe it, but a great PR to attract those great caliber candidates.
Yeah, no, we had a webinar on health and wellbeing a few weeks ago that was lots of practical ideas from workspace companies on what they're doing. So over the last year, one thing that we've all got very used to is meeting up on screen, and it doesn't whether that's webinars or we're living our lives on Zoom and Teams and things, and of course that's played into to interviews as well, where jobs are being recruited to. So with people having to attend an interview online. What are your thoughts on this, and do you think it will continue once we're sort of over the other side of this? And also, how can people get the best out of video conference interviews? Chris, do you want to take that first?
I'm really relaxed about video for interviews. I think it's here to stay, and I think from a cost perspective for the candidate and for the employer, it cuts a lot of cost out having to sort of travel, an hour or so to an interview. I also think it enables people who perhaps have got disability or issues with actually leaving the house or to actually attend a job interview. So I think there are certain benefits to it. I'm really relaxed about it. I think to get the best out of an interview, of course, what you need to do is you need to actually give candidates the choice, and you need to say, look, we can perhaps do it by a video link, or would you prefer to come in? So I think providing you give people the choice, but also you can't discriminate against someone who says, actually, I don't want to do a video, because if they don't have the technology at home, they don't have the quiet space, they don't have the bandwidth or the broadband or whatever it is, you can't make that as a detriment. So I think whatever it is, it has to be flexible. And if the candidate is keen on an initial video interview, then I think that's something to be celebrated. I think that's great. But I think that as you go through an interview process, you are going to fundamentally want to meet the person ultimately.
Yeah, so perhaps first step. Jamie, your thoughts?
I agree. I think it's great that we've got the technology available, to be honest, and it hasn't come at a better time, has it, during the pandemic. To be honest with you, I think the benefits of it is that we can arrange interviews very quickly and quite flexibly as well. Like Chris mentioned, it kind of, you can cut down on the travel, and you're giving people that may find quite difficult, coming into a venue to actually be interviewed, the opportunity to still be a part of that process. Will it continue? I think absolutely. But again, I think it needs to be a choice, like Chris mentioned. But I think it also, it can't just be, just on virtual interviewing. There needs to be, you might have the first stage virtual, but the second stage, you would want to actually meet them face to face. Because I guess leading on to your next point, Jade, regarding how can people get the most out recruiting from doing these virtual conferences or interviews. The main thing I would say for an interviewer, when you are having these virtual conferences or interviews over Zoom or Teams or whatever the platform is, you need to ensure that you enable the interviewee to feel comfortable during that experience, because it's very difficult to display or showcase your personality through a screen. So I think that the main thing is just to build a bit of rapport before you get onto the hard-hitting questions. Let them feel relaxed in using this platform or this medium, and then hopefully once they become more relaxed, their personality will shine through. And then obviously, hopefully meet them afterwards if they've done really well.
Yeah, yes, because it's perhaps also a dangerous assumption that everyone has been using this kind of technology over the last year, because that clearly hasn't been the case for everybody. So making sure that people are comfortable, at least after a few minutes of general chat, I'm sure is particularly helpful on that. So in terms of you've got the staff recruited and retaining them in this new world of work, do you think there are some new challenges to this, and how we might overcome them, Chris?
I mean, Jane, can you imagine wanting to work for someone who didn't offer, good employee well-being or flexibility in their workplace? I mean, I know this has all come to the forefront since the pandemic, but there is no going back. And I think people are going to want something out of their work that's additional to just reward. So to retain talent, you are really going to have to look after people, and you're going to have to treat them extremely well. And that doesn't mean sort of kowtowing to every single demand that somebody makes, but it is actually having a really good organizational, strong culture, which actually does include everybody. And as Jamie, talked about, the diversity and inclusivity is so important today. And your workforce has to kind of, it has to reflect society as it is today. And I think that's going to be key to retaining talent, because otherwise they will just move.
Yeah, lots of choices out there. Jamie?
Yeah, definitely. But I also think there are different variables that will influence companies' ability to retain staff as well. Exactly what Chris mentioned. But I also think within the culture, ensuring that it's lived and breathed from the top all the way down, and communication, as I'm probably going to reiterate in this constantly throughout, is such an important thing. There needs to be constant communication. People need to know what's going on, because that's when they feel a bit more comfortable, because they know how the land lays, as it were. And I think, if communication, company-wide calls from senior managers, at least people get a real sense that, oh, okay, the senior directors actually do care about what's going on. They actually are in touch with what's happening on the ground. And then the line managers as well also needs to keep on top of their communication. So making sure that they're having, those real quality conversations very regularly as well. So not just, when it comes to their appraisal time, be having those weekly conversations to be able to address the current issues that we've got going on at the moment. Like we said, mental health is impacted. I'm sure absolutely everyone can say they've been, been touched by mental health in some way, shape or form, whether it's someone or yourself. So having, line managers being in touch with their member of staff, I believe can actually contribute to retaining staff a lot better.
Great, thank you. So the next question I've got was actually submitted by someone who is hopefully watching. It was someone who registered to attend. So they've asked, many organisations are embracing flexible hybrid working, but many roles in flexible workspace are tied to working in the office. Do you see this as changing for location staff in our industry? Jamie, do you want to take that first this time?
It is a really, really good question, and it's something that organisations and themselves need to analyse, whether it can work within their company. But in my opinion and from my experience being within a flexible workspace, we are client facing, you know, and although we're very similar to hospitality, but if you were to walk into a hotel and there was no one sitting on reception, for example, because they're working at home, it's not gonna, you know, create the same appeal, is it? So it's for us, it's all about engaging with our clients. Ultimately, they pay the rent. And they pay our bills. So I think it will be quite difficult to engage with our clients or enabling them to have the confidence to say, okay, this organisation, although they've implemented a hybrid working system, for example, or you know, injected a lot of flexibility, are the levels of you know, the high levels of service, is that going to be maintained? And that's something that an organisation really will have to analyse and consider before they implement those working patterns. Although flexibility, you know, has been available for a very long time. You know, people will work part-time hours, which is, you know, brilliant as well. But again, it's about understanding, are they able to build rapport? Can that work for my organisation? Because a lot of the real quality conversations that people will have with their clients could be just at the coffee machine, could be a quick "how are you doing" when they're walking past reception, and it could be quite difficult to maintain that when, you know, they're working from home one day a week or something like that. I know in head office it can be completely different, and that's something that you may need to look at in regards to the structure, but the location level stuff I think may be a little bit difficult. Again, it's something that the organisation will really need to drill down, analyse and consider.
Yeah, I think those kind of interactions with colleagues are what we're all missing, because we're working from home so much more, whatever our roles are. Chris, have you any thoughts on that?
There was a piece of research out today by a think tank called Demos, which actually said that 4/5 of people will want to be able to work remotely after the pandemic is finished. Now, that's not saying they want to work at home, but they want to be able to work remotely from the office. So what I would probably think about is there going to be a renaissance in regional towns and cities whereby people will be wanting to work closer to home. So they may not want to travel into Birmingham or Manchester or London or Leeds, but actually they're very happy to work in Guildford or Southend-on-Sea or wherever it is. So, but Demos have gone a little bit further. What they're actually saying is that what they'd like the government to do is actually introduce legislation that says that you have to actually legally prove that the job cannot be done remotely. So that's a really big paradigm shift. I mean, now how that works for all sorts of professions, I don't know. I mean, for the flexible workspace profession, that's going to be tricky. You imagine how, you know, if you kind of apply that to medicine or the emergency services. I mean, you can't have police officers or doctors working from home. So I think that there's a lot of nonsense written all about this at the moment. But I think, you know, echoing really what Jamie said, is that if we can make flexibility in certain roles, if you can do it, then I think you should be able to do it. And there are, you know, people don't have to work from home. I mean, you can have compressed hours, you can have job shares, you can have all sorts of different tactics in which to give some people some flexibility in how they work. And I think that's going to be key.
Yeah, and when you start thinking about all the different types of careers, there are an awful lot of roles are customer facing, need to be there in front of the customer. So clearly, it's going to really vary, isn't it? But I'm sure we're going to see much more of a mixed model as we go forward. And flexible workspace operators are clearly very well placed to be providing some of those remote workplaces as well. So moving on to another topic, I think. Jamie, I think we touched on company culture. Can you maybe give us some top tips on how to create and maintain a positive company culture in these times? Jamie, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, engagement is the biggest piece. And there's no point in trying to promote a particular culture if the leaders of the organisation are not living and breathing it themselves. So the main thing in order to create and maintain is that it needs to be believed from the top, and then it will filter through to the rest of the organisation. I also feel that recognition is a key thing for a positive culture. You know, especially during this time in the pandemic, those people that have worked constantly throughout the pandemic, maybe just giving them a bit of a shout out, saying thank you, that just goes a really long way. And I think it also encourages great behaviour and maintaining that great behaviour as well. So I think for me, it's all about the engagement piece, and it's all about the communication, and it starts from the top.
Yeah, it doesn't always need to be sort of grand gestures. It's the small things that matter a lot. Chris?
Well, I think, I can't really add to what Jamie said, but I think if you have people and you allow ugly behavior between people in your workplace, then that's the culture that you have, and that's the culture that you deserve. So you got to address all this stuff, all this low level, moaning or people being unpleasant or unprofessional to one another. If you allow that, then that's your culture. And there's no point having some sort of vague, behaviors or values on your website or wherever else it is. If you don't, as Jamie said, if it's not lived and breathed, it's pointless, and actually staff see through it really quickly, and actually it disengages them. So, address bad behavior. That's what people need to start with.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to our final question. It's become a bit of a tradition of these webinars that we do a bit of crystal ball gazing and look to the future in the final one. So for this, the final question for this webinar, a recent report from the Future Strategy Club found that people are worried that finding the right job after the pandemic will be increasingly difficult. Why would a career in the flexible workspace industry be a good choice for them to make? Chris, do you want to start this time?
Because I think the sector's changing, and I think it's changing at a huge rate. And I think there's going to be lots of different roles and new roles that come in with real estate. I mean, and flexible work is just a tiny little bit of that. So it's such an exciting sector in which to be in. And I think with all the artificial intelligence coming in and all the developments around it, there are roles that we cannot even see that there will be there tomorrow. We don't know what they are yet, but there will be some, and there'll be new ones, and there'll be exciting ones. So I think if you're committed to service and you really, really enjoy looking after people, then it's a really good place to be.
Yeah, I was pulling in my census over the weekend and was thinking as I wrote what my job is in 100 years' time. Will that make any sense to people that are reading that information? Jamie, your thoughts on the future?
On the future, wow, yeah, we definitely need a crystal ball for that one, don't we? For me, it needs to be the right choice for the right person. And for me, the right person would be someone that has the characteristics that enjoys, wanting to make a difference in someone's day, that loves to communicate, that enjoys problem solving, that's personable, flexible, and has a passion for continued development. I think anybody that upholds those type of characteristics will have an absolutely outstanding career in no matter what department your passion actually lies, in HR, in accounts, in facilities management, operations, even marketing. Those people that hold those characteristics, this is an absolute amazing industry to really get your teeth into and make it your own.
Thank you. Well, that's a really, really good note to end on. So thank you very much, Chris and Jamie, and thank you to everyone who's been watching. We're working. We haven't got any firm dates or titles for our next webinars, but if anybody has any thoughts on things we could cover, do get in touch, and we will be publishing lists of future events in due course. So thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.